I call David Clinton.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Kei te mihi o te rā kia koutou ki na manahiri. Nā rangatira mā, nā kuia mā, ki na tangata o nā hapu katoa o te hiku, a tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So as ever, it's a privilege to stand on behalf of the Greens to speak to a settlement bill, to the end of a journey, but the beginning of perhaps a much longer journey, which all of these settlements do represent. So this is an auspicious day, an important day for Te Hiku and for Northland more generally, for Tautokerau. It does represent an enormous amount of work that has been done, and I join with other people who have spoken, recognising and acknowledging the work of those who have gone before us, who are not here to see this celebration, but without whose thoughts and whose hands, often over a lifetime of work, this day would not have been reached. And of course, it's all in the interest of improving the lot of those who live with us today and those who will come after us into the future. And I think it's something we can all agree that our aspirations has to be to create a better future for our mokopuna, for our rangatahi, and that should be the goal that focuses all of our work, not only around these bills, but about others indeed. So the Te Hiku area, the far north, contains some of those beautiful, some of those powerful, some of the most iconic landscapes anywhere in our country, or I would argue in any other country. Sites of extraordinary cultural importance, Te Rerenga Wairua, Te Onoroa Tohi, not only renowned for physical beauty, but also for their cultural importance, both to Māori, to tupuna Māori, to present day, and indeed to Pākehā who have become in their time Indigenous to this country as well. So it's important so that we acknowledge the significance of the place and of the people who have lived there and who will live there in the future. Unfortunately, sir, too often when people think of Northland and even indeed the far north, we think of deprivation, of neglect, of ill health, both of the landscape and of the people, and those two, of course, are inextricably linked. We need to turn that around, and this settlement bill is a step. It's quite a large step towards putting the resources into the hands of those who can turn that around, so that in time, Te Hiku, Northland, Tautokerau generally will be associated with well-being, with prosperity, with opportunity. And these are the things that we can aspire to collectively, and this today is an important step towards achieving that goal. So as ever, when settlements are signed, when bills come through this House, there is almost inevitably, as night follows day, a backlash from people who often should know better, concerns expressed as there were some months ago around the matter of a co-governance model for Te Onoroa Tohi, the ridiculous claims that Māori would immediately exclude people from the beach, that barriers would be raised, roads would be dug up. Nonsense from somebody who should know better. And I'm sure that over time we will see that in fact the co-governance structure that puts hapu in their rightful place as having significant decision-making authority over the beaches, over the landscape generally, is an appropriate model, and it will contribute to our collective well-being as it evolves. So I'd like to just quote briefly from a submission made to this bill by Hami Perepi, the chair, of course, of the Runanga of Te Rarawa. He was speaking actually about an earlier negotiation. I don't pretend to have read all the submissions. I wasn't on the committee. It's a 575-page bill. But this paragraph did jump out at me as capturing the essence of a lot of what it is we aspire to do with the treaty settlements. Matua Perepi said, we reached a point in negotiations that we gauged was at the edge of the Crown's tolerance zone and might be acceptable to our people and communities. It was not perceived as the delivery of justice, but rather as seeding what could be grown to nurture our people's future. And I think that captures a lot, as I say, of the essence of what the negotiations and the settlements need to do. They need to push everybody's boundaries. The starting positions are often so polarised that there is real difficulty in getting to a point of agreement. So it's good that everybody feels a little bit of the pain, and indeed that does push their boundaries. He talked about not the delivery of justice, but a step towards that. The bills cannot and will never fully restore what was lost, what was taken. That is beyond our means. In a sense, what must be done, which is full restitution, full restoration, cannot be done. And we need to acknowledge that, but nevertheless strive to get the most appropriate, the most just outcomes that we can to ensure the future of and our future well-being. So I think the model for the future settling of grievances and injustice to some extent exists within this bill. The agreement around the land in Kohukohu, the police station, where there is an agreement that for the moment, yes, it will reside with Te Rāroa, but there is, if you like, a gentle person's agreement that if it's more appropriate in the future to go to Te Ihutai, then that is what the outcome will be. That is the superior claim will be acknowledged in time. The point of that is that in similar fashion, I think this settlement can effectively remove the Crown from the equation in terms of what happens in the future. Let the remaining matters of dispute, and they are real and they are significant, and some of the events at Kaitaia Airport in the last 24 hours or so are testament to that. But let those concerns, those remaining concerns, let them be settled by Māori, between Māori, in a way appropriate for Māori. Let it be that the ongoing concerns are settled in a way that is respectful of the conflicting claims of iwi, of hapu, and indeed of whānau. To some extent, the notion of a post-settlement settlement between Māori interests alone is acknowledging that the affected parties are inheriting a mess, not of their making, a mess resulting from generations of colonisation, the overturning and indeed the destruction of what were existing structures of governance, of management, of decision-making, and to some extent this notion of a Te Hiku is not the first, and will certainly not be the last occasion where Māori inherit a dysfunctional situation, where Māori take on the burden of seeking a more substantive and a more lasting level of justice, which may emerge from a reconciliation within and between iwi, hapu and whānau. Beyond a certain point, these matters are best dealt with and settled not in this House, not in courtrooms, not in the office of some government agency, but in the rohe, on the marae. People of goodwill from within those communities are best placed to resolve and to make good the future for the people in their time. So this settlement, as complex as it is, as subtle as it may be at times, is nevertheless, like all settlements, it's still something of a rough cut. The lines are bold and therefore somewhat crude and to some extent unsatisfactory. The ongoing task for our Māori communities, led by our kaumātua, our kuia, is to better define those boundaries, to define those boundaries that divide and the relationships that link our communities more finely, more accurately and more justly. And while today is the end of a process, it's the beginning of a longer process, a challenge to exploit the opportunities that are now available to the people of Te Hiku. And I have no question, no doubt in my mind that they will rise to that challenge and that the future will be better for it. Kia ora.
Speaker.
I call Peter Parauni.